and in today's video, we are going to be looking at your spirit guide's message for you for your current situation. This is fantastic. Just a reminder that you can ask your spirit guides literally anything. You can ask them about the future, you can ask them about the past, you can ask them why things are the way they are, what things mean, breaking things down into a deeper understanding, layers of consciousness, all that jazz. You name it, you can go anywhere. The sky's the limit when it comes to asking questions, which is why I'm such a fan of working with them and speaking with them. But we're focusing on right now. What's happening next? Where should you focus? What should you do? That type of jazz. So we're going to be looking at that in these 4 groups ahead of us. But I wanted to let you guys know, if you enjoy the channel and you would like to help support me, I have a Patreon where not only can you do that, but you also get exclusive content over there, and it's quite various. I actually just posted 4 new videos. One was a confirmation about a childhood story. Another one was a psychic exercise when it came to how to lucid dream and talking about its value with that. That one was a pleasant surprise, talking about dealing with fear when it comes to spiritual experiences. And I did a Reiki and coding session, which means essentially when you give permission, all you have to do is receive it. And I love this Reiki coding session. It basically enables you to understand easier, not understand as in compromise, understand as in fathom, go deeper into breaking it down, while simultaneous, when you go into understanding anything, it will remove fear from you in the process a lot easier. And ultimately, this is something that keeps us from moving forward, whether that be an experience that just, you're afraid to ask more questions, but sometimes fear pops up in the way of like self-doubt or what if I get it wrong, on more milder cases, and that works with both scenarios. So all of those are available over there. In addition to that, being available in the description below, you can also find I have a couple of courses available for you. My newest one is my meditation course, or as I like to describe it, a great foundation for everything else. It is a thinking person's practice. It is wonderful with guided meditations, lots of explanations, things from the Akashic Records, spirit guides, all that jazz. But it definitely is going to be looking at meditation in a way you may not have thought of before, that you are meant to go deeper and contemplate and expand upon. It's okay if your mind wanders. That's a good thing. The other course I have is my intuition training course, which goes into teaching you not only how to go to the spirit realm and meet your spirit guides, but how the non-physical and the physical overlap way more than we know, and how useful it is in your daily life. And then we have our tarot training course, which of course teaches you tarot. It teaches you all my tips and tricks. And it really breaks down the process in a simplified way where you can get into reading immediately, but not losing any of the details and looking at it as an art form, because that is what it is, and having fun seeing all the possibilities of where you can go with it. All of those, again, are available in the description below. But let's get back to our reading. We have 4 groups in front of us. Group number 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm going to give you a moment to pick the group that you resonate with most. Now that you have, you can go down to the description below where you can see your marked time stamp and skip to that group. And let's get started with group number 1. Group number 1, let's look at your spirit guide's message on your current situation by looking at the cards. We have the Chariot in reverse, the Judgment card upright. Well, that already says it all. The 8 of Cups upright, the Page of Wands in reverse. Oh, and 10 of Cups in reverse. Okay, this reads pretty matter-of-factly, but just give me 1 second. I have some questions over here that I just want to make absolutely sure of before we go into everything. You know me, I like to look at it all. So I'm going to look at this and consult my spirit guides, your spirit guides, over what's going on here. Interesting. Okay, I really love, one of the things that you'll find when working with spirit guides is they just have such a poetic way of looking at things. One of the main reasons why I suggest go speaking to them one-on-one, as we always talk about, they just always spin things in not only a more positive light, but it really shows when we look at some situations that are maybe not fun or feel more negative, their perspective can pull us into a more wider scope type of vision, which gives us the peace of mind we're actually looking for within the situation that initially made us feel so negative. So I love this. First off, we have the Eight of Cups. And my spirit guide said sometimes it is necessary to, as the imagery shows, build a wall between you and another person, situation, whatever that may be. There's no more possibility there left, and you're setting a natural boundary to be like, I can't have this in my life anymore. But other times, my spirit guide says, what's happening is, and how do I say this? It's like I felt when they were explaining this next concept, they said, sometimes when a person has built up this wall, they haven't actually looked at all the possibilities and information that they really need in order to move forward, which you're going to find we're going to expand upon over here in these two cards. And what I felt, which I was just mentioning a moment prior, was it's almost like you're used to hearing, so let's say it's not a great relationship and they're acting a certain way, treating you a certain way, and you're tired of it, or maybe you've seen others deal with the same conflict. So there's an instinctual part of you that goes, you know what? No, not again. Or maybe, you've seen others be treated a certain way and you're like, yeah, you're right. I'm putting up that wall. Just, it's an instinctual thing. But the reality is there's a little more to the puzzle you're not letting in. And initially when you're in, you wanting to be treated better, and honestly, there's a sense of fear that can sometimes come with this attitude. This is not an accusation. It's just more like, how you naturally want to put up a wall because there's a part of you that's afraid that you'll go back, or afraid you'll deal with this situation again if you don't put up that wall. And the idea of hearing more information almost feels like you're giving someone a second chance, or you're even showing compassion in the moment when you're like, no, I need the compassion. They don't need 2 more seconds of my time. I need those 2 seconds of my time back. And this is all very understandable. But this is going to get expanded upon in a way that you'll find we're going to look at this differently by the end of this card reading. So keep that in mind. So with this sense of, I'm done, I'm putting up this wall, I'm shutting this out, then we have the Page of Wands in reverse. Now, typically, if this was upright, this would be an adventurer starting a brand new path, which makes sense you'd start a new path when you've closed off another. You're going in a direction you didn't think you would go before. But in reverse, it is the opposite. It implies this feeling of being stuck, like you're not quite sure how to get motivated for it, or maybe you're not quite sure how to get started on this new path, or what that exactly means and what you should be doing in order to keep moving forward. There's a sense of not complacency, just being stuck because of, again, what we talked about over here, a lack of having all the knowledge. This gets expanded upon again. Here we have over here in the 10 of Cups in reverse. And I do want to point something out. I'll point it out afterwards. But in the 10 of Cups, now, traditionally when we read this card, when it's in reverse, we just blanketly look at it and we go, oh, negative, sad, unhappy. No, let's go deeper. My spirit guide was pointing out the imagery in this card. If you look over here, this person is using, and I would love to know in the comments below, I love reading your comments, sincerely. Over here, this is an individual who's like measuring the longitude and latitude. My question is, what is the name of this? I know in a lot of engineers use this, but there's a specific name for this, probably one for name for it because it's so old-timey. But essentially, this person is looking out into the waves and they're measuring the distance and the space and the wind and various concepts when it comes in relationship to this sailboat. So they're planning out their trip. This is how my spirit guide described it. But in reverse, it implies the opposite, as in, you don't have everything you need in order to plan it. My spirit guide said, there's a sense of unhappiness for you, a feeling of unhappiness, when you don't feel like you have all the information to feel confident moving forward. And again, all the information. This is what's so interesting about this concept. What I was going to say before, but I paused myself in order to complete the idea, is spirit guides have a gorgeous way of going, and here's a little bit more information. And now it sounds like I'm repeating the information again. Nope, I'm expanding upon the information. And they might say something to you 10 different times, but it's because they need to say it 10 different ways for you to really get it. And they're breaking it down bit by bit, so by the time you fully realize the idea, you really understand every facet of it. And this for me is a perfect example of the way they communicate that I just love so deeply. So anyways, going back to what we have here, again, when we talk about not having all the information in order to move forward, we're not talking about making room for this other person in order to, again, we're just using the example of another person, a relationship on the other side of the store. We're not talking about giving them a chance in order to make excuses and, pull you back in. Maybe they aren't good for you. Maybe it is time for you to move on. But the part you might not have fully is it sometimes feels better in order to move forward knowing you fully said no to this person, not because you were afraid you were going to get sucked back in and they were bad for you, but you fully know like they're not great for you. You're fully aware of all of what happened in order to have a deeper sense of already moved on, already grieved it, already let go of it, rather than moving on, but still feeling a part of you being pulled in that direction. There's a part of you that, again, if let's say for an example on the other side of the store was a career, you're like a job you're not happy with. You want to go a little deeper into understanding the scenario, all the information, both literally up front, who said what happened, but also this bigger concept of what does it mean in relationship to this opportunity you're being given when you're deciding to move away from it, when you're interacting with it and you're, making this decision. That idea gets expanded upon over here in the judgment card. See how beautifully we're adding up to it slowly? In the judgment card, this specifically talks about the idea of the universe giving you a test, if you will. Now, when this happens, this is like an opportunity where, okay, so for example, we're going back to the relationship concept again. This is just a metaphor. Let's say you keep dating a certain type of person and you're tired of it. You don't like it. And so part of you knows you need to say no because you're stepping into another scenario with the same person again. You know what I mean? But the testing part of it would be giving you an opportunity to go, well, why do I feel always drawn to this person? What does it mean in this scenario when I'm interacting with this? How can I go beyond just saying yes to being with them again or no to not being with them, but understand that this is a moment where I can fully depend on myself and be connected to my inner power. And knowing this and seeing it enacted helps me better understand myself. And at the end of the day, it's not even really about the relationship. It's about you. And you see what I mean by backing away, looking at the bigger picture? It's not good and bad. It's not yes and no. It's I don't want to do this and I do want to do this. What does it mean in the larger scope of everything? And by having both the literal upfront information as well as the bigger scope information, that's then what leads to on the opposite end. So we have two different scenarios. We have behind the door, what could you get from it? And closing off the door, what can you get from it? We lead to the Chariot on this scenario where you go behind the door and you find out more information. You don't close yourself off quite yet. In the Chariot card, I'm really happy to say this is not being read in reverse, but is being read upright and out of the scenario. The Chariot card is very literal. Momentum, victory, moving forward out of the scenario. So you're still in either direction, moving out of a scenario you're tired of, you don't want anymore. But while this one was like you trying to attempt to move forward, being kind of frustrated and confused what to do next, very in your feelings, feeling like you don't fully, let's say again, we use this scenario as a career. you could potentially leave it feeling doubtful of yourself and what you had to offer as a whole. And then this goes back to the 10 of Cups in reverse, because you don't feel like you know exactly if you were worth it or not due to the career setting. Moving forward, finding a new career feels emotionally difficult. It feels frustrating. You kind of get in your head. It's something you unnecessarily, keep that in mind, that word, unnecessary, for you to recover or learn from. But if you push through your initial feelings and you get more information, you not only met the test, you stood a little more in your inner power and in your shoes and were a little more confident, but you leave still moving forward, still getting out of that situation, but being like, oh, wait a minute. That's why this is such a difficult situation and this is why I need to leave. You know what? I am leaving. I know what's happening. I'm done. We're good. I feel better now. I feel like I got all the answers I needed. And moving forward. So again, remember, we're not making space for other people. We're making space for you and your knowledge. Knowledge is power. So it's a really beautiful scenario and helps us sort of pause and take a moment. But sometimes, yes, it can feel like when you're pausing and taking a moment, you're, sacrificing a bit of your integrity. That's what it initially feels like, but you're not. You're actually doing something else. So I love this for you because ultimately it gives you options. You can choose either one. This is not like misery and disdain, bad. It's just like, yeah, you're going to feel a little stuck. This is why you'll feel a little stuck. And we talked about the other choice you can easily make and go back to. It's never too late. Go back and get more information. Talk to some people if the scenarios already happen. And once you step into your power in that kind of way, this then leads you and gives you the momentum to move forward. And imagine stepping into your next career feeling better about yourself than ever, next relationship better than ever, knowing who you are, knowing that there's nothing you need to be self-conscious about, but also being like, yeah, I'm not wasting any time recovering or trying to make myself feel better over something that I actually didn't do anything wrong. See what I'm saying? It's beautiful. I love this for you. So please let me know in the comments below what you think. I would love to know. Please leave this video a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. It helps out like you would not believe. I am wishing you the best. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. And let's get ready for group number 2. Group number 2. Let's look at your spirit guide's message for your current situation by looking at the cards. We have 7 of Cups in reverse. Always love to see a 9 of Pentacles upright. 8 of Swords in reverse. The Emperor in reverse. Oh, and the Page of Cups in reverse. I'm very curious about that. Okay, give me just a moment to look into everything and to consult your spirit guides. Okay. All right. Okay, I love this. This is sort of starting in one direction and ending completely the opposite. It's a wonderful thing. So first, let's start with the 8 of Swords. This is someone definitely getting out of a scenario that wasn't great. You know, they're getting out of it. They're making that decision. They're pulling themselves out of it. When it is an 8 of Swords scenario, somebody feels very trapped. They don't feel like they can move forward. There's definitely a lot of limitations. This is definitely when you're like at some sort of corporation and you're brainwashed into thinking like, this is it. This is the best it's going to get. I mean, you could definitely say that for some friendships or relationships and stuff like that, scenarios. Sometimes it just feels like maybe you invested too much money in part of your business in something and you're like, oh no, I'm stuck. And there's a part of you that went, no. And it's a very empowering sense of no and breaking free. I also do want to point out the imagery of the cards. Remind me in the comments below, I think it's called 52 card pickup when somebody is very rude and just throws a bunch of cards at you, and those playing cards go everywhere, and obviously someone would feel quite frazzled trying to pick them all up, put them in an order, not quite sure how to organize them or what's the even point of the concept as a whole. And that's a perfect description for when this card is traditionally upright. That's how it feels. Too many options, you're not quite sure what to do with it. And especially in this scenario, if somebody is putting you in that situation, it can feel very nonsensical. Like the lack of organization, the lack of not sure what to do with the options doesn't really make sense, which only frustrates you even more when it comes to trying to choose what to do next and move forward. And I will point this out too, it's a great distraction. It makes you view all the limitations and not questioning that there really shouldn't be any and that there never is for anybody. So initially have this breaking free experience for you. You're like, I'm done. I just suddenly realized I don't need to put up with this, and you're breaking free of that nonsensicalness. However, this is really important before we go over here. In the Emperor in reverse, I was told while it is an empowering moment that you are leaving and you're saying, no, I'm done with this situation, I'm realizing I shouldn't have to deal with limitation in any kind of way and anymore. And that doesn't mean necessarily you full on leave this situation, but like you say no to that feeling, as we just expressed before. But the Emperor in reverse shows that while you might have just broken free and made a positive step forward, your foundation isn't very strong and you need to fortify it in order to move forward. So our foundation is everything from, my spirit guide was talking about things like, what motivates you? What do you need? Because sometimes we don't even think about it, but what if you're someone that's like, I need my 4 snacks a day at work? And that seems silly, but that's something that fortifies you to build upon. What is it that gets you excited or feels like relaxes you? What is like an absolute must when, moving forward in this direction? How do you want to be treated? What are your basics? And that foundation is extremely important. The Emperor is extremely important because when our foundation is very strong as an individual, when we move and build things upon it, we know it's really stable. It does actually have a longevity vibe to it, like the Ten of Pentacles, something I don't hear spoken about enough. So when you're doing this, think about what you shouldn't sacrifice even the small stuff of whatever it is important to you, whatever gets you excited, whatever makes you feel like the best version of you. Even if you feel like you're asking too much, keep in mind that's just in your head, that's not actually true. But if you feel that feeling, still ask it, still demand it of your environment, your interactions, whatever that may be. Because as you move forward, it's a lot easier to make choices. This is very similar to a good example is, let's say you're running, you run a situation for many people. If other people depend on you, you're going to be having a lot asked of you. So how can you possibly be there for those other people if you don't feel like regularly rejuvenated, excited about what you're doing, feeling like you're getting enough breaks, not in your head about constant deadlines? What do you need now? Tapping into that, figuring that out, asking those questions. I highly recommend making it really fun. Like a lot of people really like making vision boards. Make your foundation board and go through a bunch of questions of what would be the basic concepts of needing. And we're talking about more than physical, we're talking about mental, we're talking about how you're treated, inspiration, everything, emotional. Make a whole list, have fun, cut up pictures, and relate back to it that no matter where you go going forward in other scenarios, this is what you demand of interactions with you with other people, work environments, relationships, scenarios, whatever that may be. This is what is your bottom line. And know that because you'll receive your bottom line, your quality of life is better, you'll feel more confident, you won't find yourself again in a limited position. Because if someone can't easily match your bottom line, then obviously how can you possibly build something in the long term with them? And they're saying to you, well, we don't really care. And you're like, well, then why should I care? That's what you're basically saying back when you're building a good foundation. So it's fun, it gives a lot of confidence, but here's the important thing. Now, in the Page of Cups in reverse, I was told that you will receive a little bit of bad news. Not big. My spirit guide said that if they have a strong foundation, it will be even easier to deal with. But if they don't have a strong foundation, you don't make this a priority, it's not that big of a deal that you'll be totally fine and you'll move on and it'll be fine. I will say I was looking more into this. I'm definitely going to pull another card, but my first thought is that because this card talks about the idea of an inn, you have to be quite organized, back to that concept of being in control, feel like you understand how everybody's functioning in your inn for that night. There's enough food, rooms, things like that. So when it's in reverse, it feels like this concept of out of your control. So let me just pull another card to see if I can get a little more clarity on it. Yeah, just directly, Strength card in reverse. This, if you need some more clarity, if you're not familiar with tarot, traditionally this talks about somebody who is, imagine this beast. This could be another individual. This could be a part of them that feels out of control in some way. And when it's in upright, they're in harmony with it. But when it's in reverse, it feels like it's controlling them. They're catering to it. So it definitely feels like this scenario is something that it just sort of kind of blew your way. There's not really much you can do about it. You didn't make a wrong decision. And that's something important to remember. You shouldn't be saying mantras to yourself like, oh, just my luck. Why does this always happen to me? You really shouldn't perpetuate this. This is just something that happened. It is small. I do want to reassure you it is small. And if you have your foundation in place, it's extra nothing. But I do want to talk about where you're headed and some other beautiful stuff to focus on in relationship to this. Because again, this is the first step. This is how to build upon the first step, and this is where you're headed. So in the Nine of Pentacles, I love how my spirit guide expressed this. They said, this is somebody who is confident in what they have to offer and they've stopped worrying about it. They, often when we are building towards long-term goals, again, I'm just going to use career as another example. You're building up all these skills. You hope you get hired by certain companies or you get certain connections for certain freelance work, whatever that may be. But it's this feeling of pushing to the next concept, so on and so forth. You get what I'm saying. So with that being the case, and moving forward in that kind of way, I just spaced out for 1 second. I apologize. I have to remember a lot, so sometimes that happens. They hit a certain point where they stop feeling that sense of a hustle, and they start to feel themselves be in the day-to-day routine of their own. This is the standard. This is, back to the standard concept. This is just who I am. Of course and this is what's really exciting, Nine of Pentacles, she's got a lot of money. She's got a lot of money, and she has so much money, she's regularly spending it and treating herself on luxury goods and nice things in life because she knows she will always have more money coming her way. So she's killing it. She's feeling really happy. She's totally stopped worrying anymore. She just totally has trust for herself and her sort of placement in the world and her situation. So this is where you're headed, which is really beautiful. And something that can keep building you in that direction, despite just purely, telling people, no, I'm done. I don't want to see limitations. I only want to see possibilities. Building a foundation is over here in the Seven of Cups. Now over here, we've got two opposing concepts. In the Eight of Swords, she ironically had too many options that it felt overwhelming and it felt like limitation. But over here and you might have even saw all your options as not options of things you can work with, but options of how it could go wrong. But in the Seven of Cups, which actually is being read up right here and interacting with the Nine of Pentacles, she has all these options and she doesn't view them as an overwhelming or negative thing. She's like, look at all these options I have. Because I have so many, I can look at all of them. And when I make a decision going forward, I will get to choose the very best one. So therefore, I will always have the best of the best. I'll always have options. I'll always make the right decision because I'll even have comparison. Look at me. Even when I was at my worst, I actually secretly always had options. I just wasn't in the right headspace to realize that and utilize that. So this is what I mean when I say working with spirit guides. They help us reevaluate times in our life that felt like the opposite and felt incredibly limiting and negative. And suddenly it makes us feel like what felt like a hindrance or a fault of ours was actually always a gift. So your ability to notice all of these potentials, even if initially you saw all the ways it could go wrong, was actually you easily showing all the options you have, that in time you are spinning towards all the things that can work out in your favor, all the routes you can go. And as you keep up that headspace of changing those options to more possibilities, whether they be actual opportunities or different ways to approach a situation, because there's always a different way, you will start to attract more of those in your life. And you see them as more of a gift in time, because again, back to that scenario we talked about, you can choose the best of the best. It's great, it's easy, you are full of abundance, you know what you're doing. You're really easily moving into this route where you're kissing goodbye things that no longer serve you and are no longer functioning. But there is still a little bit of a stepping stool we want to build upon in order to get that momentum going. So again, remember, keep saying no to limitation, but know that it is a gift, that how it started and where it will lead to. Build that foundation. Don't worry about this. This is showing how strong your foundation is. It's giving you an opportunity to look at your foundation and realize, wow, this is why the foundation is so important. This is why I should never compromise and should always expect this foundation to be repeated back to me through interactions, experiences, environments. This is where I'm headed, which is awesome. She really has it all and is enjoying it and is worry-free, and how to reevaluate that worry you previously looked at. So I absolutely love this for you. I hope you feel just as excited and enthralled as I did. It was really fun for me to read this. And honestly, I think the thing that charms my heart so much about this particular reading is, again, I just never get sick of parts of our lives when we felt disconnected or felt at our worst, and we had no idea how talented we were, how gifted we are, how abundant we are, and that the signs were there. We just weren't aware of how to relook at it and how to then spin it in our favor. And now you do. So please let me know what you think in the comments below. It means the world to me. Please leave a like, a comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell. It helps out like you would not believe. I am wishing you the best. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. And let's get ready for group number three. Group number 3. Let's look at your spirit guides' messages on your current situation by looking at the cards. We have 4 of Pentacles upright, the Emperor in reverse, the Sun card in reverse, the 4 of Swords upright, ooh, and the 5 of Swords upright. Ooh, I'm intrigued. Okay, give me just one moment to look at the details here, as well as consult your spirit guides, and I'll be with you in one moment. This has some absolutely fantastic words of wisdom. I really love this. Okay, so I'm just gonna forewarn you, we're gonna start off a little intense initially. Do not worry, it's got a wonderful happy ending, a lot of things to easily be aware of and therefore reverse, and overall you're gonna be very happy, but we need to talk about it needs to be a little rough initially, so to speak, before the journey forward gets smoother, so to speak. So first, let's start with our main point, which is the Four of Swords upright. In this position, we're looking specifically at the imagery. This is what my spirit guide was pointing out. They said, this individual, you, is unaware of some dangers around them. And they said, it's not super serious, but it's not, sometimes when I'm doing these readings, I'm like, it's not the worst thing in the world. We would say medium toned, somewhere around there. Oh, hold on, my spirit guide's talking to me. Oh, okay. My spirit guide was going like this, kind of like, and I was like, oh, what? And they were like, and I just consulted them and they said, a little closer to more of the dangerous situation. So obviously we don't want that for you. You are here asleep on the tree branch, and these swords are hanging above and are precariously could drop at any moment. Now, if you notice, you have a sword right here that technically you could pick it up and, defend yourself, so to speak, whack those swords away. But right now, and don't worry, we're going to change this. This is why we're pointing out in order to go over all the different things that you can be aware of and then change the circumstance for the better. But I was told that you are too distracted right now to both be aware that of these dangers around you and as well to be able to defend yourself and change the circumstance. We can again change that, but what is it that is distracting you from being aware and stepping in your power, if you will, to defend yourself, as well as what can help you pick up that proverbial sword? Well, let's get started over here. First, we have the Sun card in reverse. Now, specifically, this talks about insecurities, but I want to be really clear here. Insecurities that are there because something took too long, prolonged time period that over time made you doubt yourself. Perfect example for this is, let's say you started out hopeful with an idea of working out. Yeah, I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to make my dreams come true. But let's say a couple years have gone by, a couple months. Maybe it wasn't meant to take a couple weeks, and you're starting to, because it's just taking longer than you think it should, feeling insecure of like, what if it's taking so long because it's not going to happen at all? What if I'm just sitting here waiting and it's never meant to happen? And let me just double check one thing with my spirit guide before I say it. Okay, I'm very happy to say my spirit guide confirmed this. So even though we talk about the idea of prolonged time period going by then causing the insecurity, keep in mind, notice I didn't say no. And I checked this with my spirit guide. It doesn't mean, it might feel like right now and you have those doubts in your head of it's not going to happen. What if I wasn't meant to be? What if I'm not good enough? You're still on that route. It's still going to happen. It's just because it's taking so long, this is when the insecurities are coming in. So keep that one part in mind. We're going to come back to this concept and build it up all together. But because of those insecurities, this is then when we have the Emperor in reverse, which is specifically referring to a rushed belief system. So what do I mean by that? Typically, the Emperor, whether it's upright or reverse, talks about this idea of our foundation. And when we've got a solid foundation, everything else built upon, ideas, actions, words we speak, whatever that may be, they are only as capable of existing in the long term, have a longevity behind them, or are useful in any way based on how strong that structure is they're built upon. So this is like the core things we believe and stuff like that. But we also have, what I'd like to say is almost mini foundations. Sorry about that interruption. Going back to what we were just saying about the foundations. Sometimes it is the big type of foundation where it is your entire, life existence. What do you believe? And then sometimes we have these mini foundations where they're a case-by-case scenario. So going into your current situation, you said, okay, I want it to look like this. I want it to feel like that. I want to feel like this at the end of it. And in this particular situation, it was rushed before you continued on. So sometimes we're making this rushed type of decision making based on what other people want, what we think that it should look like based on societal pressures, or maybe you're making something to impress other people. And so again, you're worried about what they want. And there's no slowing down of saying, well, how will you feel during this in order to enjoy the process, which will make the process go easier, which will mean more long-term success and various things like that, whatever that may be. And remember, this works in every case scenario, whether this be like a project, your career, even relationships. Are you slowing down and saying, yes, you think this person's special and wonderful, but are you asking yourself, what is it that in the long term you want this to look like and feel like, and day by day interactions be? So we have, again, just a quick review, we have feeling insecure because of how long it's taking, which then leads to the, okay, let's just go forward and make this happen. But what you're adding and building upon isn't what you exactly want, you could say. I am sorry about that interruption again, moving forward. But then this then goes into our third card, which is the Four of Pentacles. And specifically, when we are in this position, it's not purely a lacking mindset. I want to put this out there because there are a couple cards in that lacking mindset that are similar, but they all have a different take. In this case, it's more about the fear specifically that your current resources, whatever they may be, emotional energy, whatever, isn't enough. So you feel like you can't get involved or push yourself out of your comfort zone because, again, you feel that there are finite resources. Keep in mind, this card is ironically a pretty positive card. I often find that it refers to the idea of feeling rather than it being the actual truth. It's like when people deal with financial problems. In the long term in your life, you will of course make more money. So it's just a current situation. So because by default you will make more money, then you're actually not limited to your resources because you're ultimately going to get them in the end. In this particular case and scenario, a spirit guide was telling me that there is a fear of not having enough time. And I said, well, do they not have enough time? And my spirit guide goes, no, of course they have enough time. As in, you know how you feel like you just can't take a moment to slow down, you can't take 2 minutes, but sometimes all it takes is 2 minutes of deep breathing, taking a second to refocus and say, what do you want to do going forward? And feeling like with that clearer mind, you're able to realize what details you can leave behind and aren't as important, and what you'd actually like to do going forward. Sometimes in some situations, you think you have to do something in order to make something else work. And then suddenly you slow down and you go, I don't really even want to do this. And you end up finding out it doesn't really matter, that you are the only one putting pressure on yourself. It's that type of scenario. Now, keep in mind, I'm not saying in this particular reading, it's saying like, let it all go to the wayside if that's not what you want to do in your particular case and scenario. It's just the idea that there is more time than you're aware of. And even at the minimum, being able to pause, take a second, breathe, and reevaluate this belief system, pull back on your insecurities and get reconnected to that like inner hope in you, and realizing you're only basing it based on what you think isn't going to happen. But remember, it was just taking a little while. That's where the insecurities came from. We don't want to base our foundation off of those ideas. Again, we're reevaluating that. It can really help rejuvenate you. Now, this is what's really cool going forward. So I said, okay, they'll slow down, they'll get more confident, reconnected to themselves, they'll realize where the insecurities came from. Okay, they're working on their belief systems, they're reevaluating what they truly want going forward, they're taking a second, and like I just said, they're taking a second, they're breathing, they're realizing they don't have to keep repeating this mantra that there's not enough time, there's always enough time, they're connecting to that. Okay, cool. what could I get more details about this? I was asking my spirit guide, like, can I get more details about these scenarios we were talking about over here? And ultimately, my spirit guide said that when you are connected to these, instead of you defending yourself and you being able to have the right sort of system to rely on in order to defend yourself, these actually as a whole disappear. The scenarios that were coming your way or you're entangled with just dissipate. They don't exist anymore. You don't even have to defend yourself. You not only feel like you can and feel more conscious and aware of your environment, but the perils that felt like they were there dissipate. I want you to remember that. These things felt like they were there. Do you see the metaphor happening in your life? Do you see the universe speaking to you? You felt insecure. But in reality, you were basing it on something that is understandable, but not technically the actual truth. Same thing over here, same thing over here. Once you reconnected to the truth, reconnected and felt like you had a better footing and said to yourself in the universe, nope, I've got time, give me a second to know who I am for a moment, this just went away. Is that not gorgeous? And I want you to remember that, and that's super important because this is stuff I talk about all the time in my intuition training course. When we slow down, when we look at the signs, when we figure it out, we realize how much more in control of our life than we are. We are always trying to send ourselves messages and tell ourselves things through our interactions and reflective scenarios environments. Slow down. Take a second to evaluate and know that things can always change for the better. There are always solutions, there are always answers, and this is something I hope you take with you going forward. But one last thing to note, and this is important. So in the Five of Swords, my spirit guide had me read this. They said, Pippin, this is from Lord of the Rings, Pippin and Merry are captured by the orcs and are bound and carried away. Now, my spirit guide said, if you remember this scene, that if they had just taken a different turn, they wouldn't be in this scenario. And my spirit guide kept repeating this over and over again. And I said, oh, what do you mean by that? As in, is there a different turn? And my spirit guide said, yes. They said there is something popping up. Is it related to this? No, it's a different thing. Okay, so this gets solved with this. This is a separate thing we have now. My spirit guide said that you will be very obviously able to identify it is a bad route to go down. They described it as being too in the open, as in imagine there's a forest and the forest is your cover and you see a way too sort of open and exposed area. You're really able to identify and realize that's what you would be heading into. That's not the scenario you want to be in. Keep in mind, this is not a metaphor for being like vulnerable or like open as a person, but I was told you would easily be able to witness and go, ooh, I don't want to go down that route. And by simply being aware of it, trusting your intuition in that kind of way and not heading down that route, that saves you from being Merry and Pippin in this type of scenario. So keep that in mind. It is easy to witness that and come from a good headspace to be able to see all your surroundings, be connected to it. Not unlike this scenario, same situation, same traits, when you have all of this more lined up. So again, we talked about this. Slow down, get reconnected to these things. I'm telling you this right now, what's so beautiful is you sit down, journal. If you are familiar with my intuition training course, go talk to your spirit guides, get things organized, reconnect to yourself as we talked about over here. And not only does this dissipate, but going forward with this scenario, you will easily go, oh, I see you. No, thank you. I will stay in the woods. I will not be going. This feels suspicious. So please let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'd love to know. Also, please leave this video a like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. It helps out like you would not believe. I am wishing you the best. I look forward to seeing the next one, and let's get ready for our final group. Group number 4. Group number 4. Let's look at your spirit guides' messages on your current situation by looking at the cards. We have the Star card in reverse. Ooh, I love these together. Page of Wands upright, the Hermit card in reverse. Oh, this is fantastic. Ace of Wands upright. Oh, Six of Swords upright. I'm very curious about this one. I already have a feeling about this one, but this one I'm curious about in relationship to everything else. Just give me 1 second to consult your spirit guides as well as look at all the details myself, and I will be with you in one moment. Perfect. Yeah, okay. This almost has a feeling of a beginning and the end, like the interconnection, because it is in this particular case being read chronologically. I want you to stick around to see how they interconnect, because you'll then see the extra value here and how it relates here, and that will be really fantastic, not only for your current situation, but you are gaining some valuable insight that will help you in future situations. So yay! So first, let's start with the Star card in reverse. I am very excited for you to get this, because while it is in reverse, it's actually not that different from it upright. And if you're not familiar with what the Star card typically represents, it's this idea that you are on the right path. That oftentimes it feels magical. Like you're like, yeah, I just feel like I'm where I need to be. I feel like I'm with the right person. I feel like I'm headed towards my goals and I'm aware of it. Sometimes the Star card pops up even if you're not quite sure how to put it into words. It definitely feels like you're in sync, in the flow, and in some cases destiny bound. Keep in mind, not always. If you're familiar with all the times I talk about karmic contracts, about before we come into these lifetimes, you have tons and tons and tons and tons of options and variables. It's very rare you'll come across something that's like just meant to happen. Even then, usually most of the time you can change that. But in this particular case and scenario, when it's in reverse, it says you're doing so fantastic. You are completely in the flow. You are where you need to be at the right time. You are moving and heading in the right direction. It doesn't feel like that. You feel potentially lost. In this particular case, my spirit guide said disconnected. Like you feel disconnected from themselves or the situation. Oh, my spirit guide said both. Okay. So with this popping up, this then makes extra sense. Oh, well, this too, actually. So because we want you to feel excited and connected that you're on the right path, not only for comfortability's sake, but if you're not aware you're moving towards the right path, I want to be clear, I don't want you to be, this is not actually going to happen. I don't want you to freak out, but you could get in your head about it so much that you derail from the path. That's not going to happen. We're not concerned about that. You can be in your head all you want, but the point is we want you to not only feel more comfortable, but actually feel like as you're moving towards your path, you can keep being in the flow and doing what you're doing. So it's like a win-win of both just emotional happiness, but also being conscious enough to be a part of the process and wield it to your benefit even more. Because one more thing I'll say before we head into this and basically turn the Star card into an upright position is when it comes to being unaware that we're on the right path and feeling disconnected, sometimes people, especially with spirit guides, they'll be like, oh, you're right where you need to be. And you're like, well, I don't really love where I am. But when you get more information and you keep talking to them and they explain, well, this is equaling this is what it's working out to. And you go, oh, okay, that makes me feel a little bit better about it. You not only feel better, but oftentimes, because you now understand why you're in the scenario you're in or an uncomfortable situation, you were only in that situation in order to understand something. And because now you've talked to your spirit guides and you understand it, basically the situation doesn't need to happen anymore. The uncomfortable situation gets resolved, and then you get to keep moving forward feeling more comfortable. So that's why especially when we talk about these readings in tarot, we need to talk about the uncomfortable things to not only have you better understanding and getting comfort, but changing the scenario just by fathoming it. Isn't that cool? I love that. Anyways, so going forward, how do we get this Star card reversed for you? Or as an upright, you're conscious of everything. So first we have the Page of Wands. And my spirit guide described this as not the momentum moving forward down your path, because you already are, but more that we need to create an opening for you so it feels like you can see it. Because that's what it feels like when you're moving forward. You can see what's happening in front of you. Think of the Page of Wands as a mindset of like you suddenly decide and you're like, you know what? I want to be an artist. And suddenly, while you might not know exactly what the next step is every single step of the way, because you have that destination in mind, suddenly a path opens up. You're making decisions in correlation to that. The path has become clear. So we want to sort of start the opening of your path. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the end result of the destination, but we do want it to be open enough that you can step through it and be conscious. Because that's the main thing. You feel disconnected because you're unconscious of how well you're doing. So over here, to open up the path, we have the Ace of Wands interacting with the Hermit card in reverse. And I thought this was interesting. What's the word when you check something 5 times? Please sound off in the comments below to make sure I was hearing this correctly. But in the Hermit card in reverse, it refers to this idea of people coming to you rather than you seeking out other people. Traditionally, the Hermit card represents this idea, especially when it's in reverse, of somebody having gained all this knowledge and information. They're really confident about themselves. They've learned whatever that they've needed to learn, especially in isolation. And then they step forward and walk forward into life, seeking out people to share like-minded ideas. Finally, they're ready to be confident and express themselves. But in this case and scenario, it's like, you're doing fantastic. You're great. You've gained the information. You've got something worth sharing. But it's about changing your attitude and not think of it almost as when you're instead of seeking out people, we're going to use the example of love. So let's say you would like to be with someone, right? A romantic partner. And initially, there's this feeling of always looking for them. And in some scenarios, keep in mind this is not blanketly the case for everybody's scenario. In some cases, the universe is trying to say to you, hey, you keep searching for them as if they are out of your grasp, as in you're describing them in the future, so they are being kept in the future. You're reaching too hard, you're having a lacking mindset. The universe is trying to teach you to pull back and have almost the attitude as if you already have them, right? And so the opposite of that would be like being so in yourself of like, yeah, I'm worth it, I'm great. I'm basically totally ready for that person, and they're just going to be drawn to me. They're going to be magnetized to me. Keep that in mind when we move forward into the Ace of Wands in relationship to this. But that's basically the attitude you're honing in. You're saying to yourself, hey, I've got this project, career. I want other people to see what's special about me, or whatever it is I want to sell and have people interested in. I'm no longer going to worry about the right marketing, the worry of what's going to happen next. I'm going to just be so awesome that people are just going to naturally, through the universe and a collection of series of events, through me creating this continuous frequency, I'm just going to bring it to me. And then this is then what happens in the Ace of Wands. Specifically, my spirit guide, and I do think this is really interesting when I bring up the marketing concept. So I was talking to this a little more in depth with my spirit guides, which are your spirit guides. Keep in mind, we're all sharing the same, not every single person is sharing the same spirit guides, but we work with all of them. So a lot of our spirit guides overlap. You see what I'm saying? Just to clarify, I made a whole video about this on Patreon, so you can check that out there. But in the Ace of Wands upright, this is representing this new ignited excitement. You feel rejuvenated looking at something you've looked at a million times before. You previously weren't pumped about it. Again, back to that dream. Maybe you had that dream to be an artist, but you've talked about it for so long and you're not excited about it anymore. And suddenly you got a new material. You want to work with gouache, or you want to start working with cloth, like fabric arts type of scenario. And you're just so pumped and excited about this. It makes you totally review the process and feel like you're looking at it again with fresh eyes. Now, my spirit guide specifically said that it actually doesn't really matter again, when we talk about even sharing what it is. Now, so perfect example of this type of attitude and scenario is, so let's say you're trying to put yourself out there on one of, a social media platform like the Clock app. And with that being said, and you're putting that out there, sometimes people are like, okay, I need to show every step of the process of what it did so I can create this thing in order to let people know I exist, and so they can then come check out the products that I have. Great logic, I want to keep in mind. We're not criticizing that here. That is actually fantastic logic. But in your case and scenario, you are so unbothered with even sharing it. You're just so excited about your personal thing, and you just have this sort of inner attitude of like, oh my gosh, I am a magnetic force. I'm so personally excited. I do everything so much for me. Of course people are coming my way. And you're almost distracted by your own personal excitement of whatever you're venturing in, and you're so inwardly pumped that you forget almost about the idea of people needing to be drawn to you or going to be drawn to you. And so a perfect example of this is, have you ever noticed that some creators over again on the same app might post maybe like every couple weeks, but when they do, those videos do very well. They're just off enjoying their hobby so much that when they post a video, people can feel their enthusiasm, feel their magneticness through it. Compared to when, again, this is not a criticism, I want to be absolutely clear, everybody's in a different situation, a different headspace, different path of what they're destined to do. Some people are meant to show every step of the process to create a deeper inspiration from other people and teaching them things indirectly. But in your case and scenario, you're the person that posts once every couple weeks. Now, am I saying to directly do that? No, but I'm giving you a scenario of what that feels like. So because you're in that headspace, you're like, okay, this is what I'm doing. That practicing what we just said here is the path opening, is you stepping into that connection and awareness. Now, the ending here is super important. So I said, oh, that's unique. Why do we get Six of Swords? The reason why I had that reaction is traditionally this talks about not only the confirmation that you're going to make it to your goal, you're going to be conscious. In some cases, this is about the consciousness that you're feeling better and more secure about where you're headed. You're going to get there. But it does imply this idea that it will take longer or be a little rough in between or something like that. Yeah, I can see, I was about to say this, but my spirit guide, I can see them shaking their head as in like, and I'm consulting with them now, like as in, it's not going to be difficult for you. Keep in mind, it's not going to be rough seas ahead, but it is taking a little while. Why? And this is when I asked my spirit guide. And they said, sometimes things need to take a while for you in order for you to learn things that will be of value later. So what's a great example of this? Let's say, and this is something I just continuously, nonstop, always find, discover, and see and explore constantly in tarot over and over and over again. We're looking for what we need, not what we want. Or you get what you need, not what you want. But that doesn't mean, obviously, you don't enjoy the end result. Because sometimes what we want isn't actually the solution. Again, going back to the need. So initially, let's say again, the dream is you want to be a famous artist. And you're like, okay, I need the supplies. I need to get the right, show my artwork in the right places to the right people. And little do you know, what you actually need is to trust yourself. And that when you gain this trust in yourself, it seems almost something silly. Like, yeah, whatever, trust myself. But if you're so deep in trust with yourself, you're not going to be in your head back and forth of who you need to talk to, where you show your art, what supplies you're going to get. You're going to be like, you know what? I don't need to worry about that. I'll know in the right moment. I'll feel when it's the right decision. I trust myself to be in the right space at the right time. So I don't need to worry about all the details in between. And I also trust not only myself, but the universe, that everything's going to work out for me in the end, which then puts you in the better headspace to be more connected intuitively to what to do next. You enjoy the process a lot more. You spend less time sort of recovering from the sort of pressure you're putting on yourself and more time enjoying creating and moving further down your path. But that was all because of trust. This over here is a perfect example. This is you not trusting the process, not feeling connected to yourself, or this idea of connection or trust to the connection. And over here, you're being forced to sort of slow down, go through this process a little longer to build that, so that in the long term, you won't have this disconnect, distrust of yourself, which then created this scenario in the first place. Again, not a negative thing. It's not a bad thing. This is how we learn. This is how we grow. But don't underestimate the subtle things. Don't underestimate the things that almost seem abstract. Like a good example is when people constantly talk about the idea of loving yourself. You're like, yeah, that's great. I need help now in this situation, but you're not aware that self-love is the foundation that literally makes everything else obsolete, easy to get through, easy to understand, easy for you to see. So that's a perfect example of what's going on here. You are gaining something from it being a little slower. And if you ever notice this again in the future, remember that you're slowing down a little bit because you're either meant to understand something or gain value in the long term. Keep in mind, you can always change that scenario. The faster you understand it, the faster you fathom it, the quicker you can resolve and go quick through the process. But there is value in the process and journey. So I love this for you. Please let me know what you think in the comments below. I love reading your comments. They make me cry with happiness. And also please leave this video a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. It helps out like you would not believe. I am wishing you the best. I look forward to seeing you next one. Goodbye.